So here we are in Plymouth Game 2. We've well, the army has defeated the forces of Camaldon, and now it's looking the Taifa Spanish are now looking to take on the Sicilian Normans, which is one of the more popular lists in this theme. So let's have a look at how that particular army we're facing set up. So here you've got three commands. You've got sort of the third one is a kind of skirmishy stuff. No, actually, no, it's a bowman command, very unusual. 3 infantry archers and a heavy cavalry impact, so I guess that's a reserve for everything else. But then 2 pretty chunky commands with 4 medium knights impetuous in the first one, and 4 impact, slightly more controllable, not with the strategist in the second one. 2 of the missile troopers, the mixed heavy spearmen and crossbowmen. Now, heavy infantry and heavy spearmen is probably the best combination for the mixed shooters. It's resistant against mounted troops, and you want those crossbowmen shooting against mounted troops. So much better than some of the other options, which is swordsman, crossbowmen, or medium foot bowman. Those 2 mixes. I think heavy spearman crossbowmen is the optimum there. So it does put out quite a lot of shooting there in a way which is still very tricky for mounted troops to attack. A couple of Saracen mercenaries with light cavalry javelin for outriders and a heavy cavalry impact. That's not a bad little force on the side. And the second one just has a couple of light infantry bows, so that's probably much more sitting in the middle, I suspect. So let's have a look about how this panned out. So a smaller army, a lovely army painted up. So there you've actually got that slightly strange, unusual bowman command is just sat there protecting the flank. And then there's a mix of good quality knights, mixed shooters, good quality knights, mixed shooters, and then the cavalry piece. I've obviously got some terrain here. There's another waterway down. This is just a cloth that was used, so this doesn't have any real effect on the game. That's just very, very shallow water, maybe. And so what I've done here, I've got the Almogavars here, potentially looking at this piece of rough terrain. Big block of spearmen here. All my knights in one go in the middle, just to take on what's there, and then sort of the spearmen here. I'm probably again refusing this piece that's just in front of the terrain as well, in terms of when the army goes forward. So you can see over there. Obviously looks like very confident folded arms action there from these guys over here, as my slightly colourful guys start inching forwards towards them in a nice solid line. And that kind of attack you can see pretty quickly. There's a lot to do though. There's quite a lot for this guy to do in this command. So he's pushing his spearmen forwards to block the knights. The bowmen are trying to get in a position where the knights can't really chase them, and they can get rid of this thing. And the Almogavars just want to make a run over here and start chewing these guys up, possibly even helped by the cavalry, because elite Almogavars, mediocre bowmen, that's kind of what they do. So this is the aim on this flank. In the centre, as I said, I'm a little bit sort of light on troops in this area, but this is clearly a piece of rough terrain, maybe a field. So my archers in it feel pretty invulnerable against the enemy cavalry. There's the javelinmen there as well. My spearmen and crossbowmen, this is probably a bit where, if they neutralize the enemy spears, I get a few shots off and then try and overload it on the other flank. This is a flank for not losing, while the other flank is the flank for winning, I think. So yeah, this is all that block of 6 knights from 2 different commands to mine. I've got the light horse out of the way. There's not a lot messing about. Being shot by these crossbowmen is not a great skirmish screen because they could just die. But I'm obviously trying to shove these spearmen in front of some of the knights so that I end up with I don't get outnumbered. The more of the knights I can take out with spearmen or play against with spearmen makes this much more of a fair fight here. And we'll probably just have to live with that shooting spearman lump in the middle. But it is mediocre if the knights can get into contact. So here, this was kind of almost the star event of the whole tournament, really. Some of Tony's pretty amazing, must be said. All hand painted shield designs, which is quite remarkable. Yeah, you don't see stuff like this at all. But fabulous to see it close up. There's quite a few more close up shots to come. Lovely army, and really nice actually do the corners and the base as well. Makes them into really nice little vignettes. Lovely faces. I think they've even got eyes, some of those people, haven't they? Yeah, look at that. There he goes. Yeah, quite remarkable. And so again, more really well painted troops over here. The cavalry, the impact cavalry with the bowmen are just sort of playing around. And again, that's impressive shield design malarkey, isn't it? Really. And here more of their knights just waiting with a range of patterns. yeah, I think if you remember the squares from mine a bit earlier, they're not quite as detailed as that. I think I probably get about 3 squares for every 10 that's in these boys. And these shield patterns as well, which I've actually subsequently had a sort of a go at copying on some 15mm figures, but again, lovely figures and some lovely stuff to look. But there, he's obviously pushed up in terms of battle. Let's stop looking at the figures all the time. They pushed up to the edge of the terrain. That means my spearmen are facing their spearmen. There's some sort of shooting going on in between the two, but I'm not getting around this flank at all here. This is just sort of neutral, really. So what does the battle now look like? Kind of as it is, that the whole army's inched forwards. There's some shooting going on. I'm starting to feel a little bit light here, but equally, what I want to do is I've got a good opportunity here. One of the knights has hung back. Perhaps these are the non-impetuous ones, I would suspect, because they look a little bit more impetuous over there. But it's just going to be a pretty straightforward clash of knights, isn't it, really, in here with the spearmen trying to add things. It may start happening before I even get into those guys on the far side. So another kind of top-down view, as many knights fighting the spearmen as possible. Then I've got some sort of reserves, and my knights can swing across here and engage them on this piece of frontage and sort of push this end of it out of the line. The Almogavars, with the threat of the knight and the heavy cavalry, have actually ended up rejoining the spear line. They can't just go racing off hunting those bowmen. Those bowmen now seem quite a long way away, and there's suddenly quite a lot to do. So that plan has gone a bit by the wayside, and here we are. We're getting ready. They're almost in charge range. Everything's almost in charge range. It's kind of crept up as close as it is, but stuff's going to happen here. There's crossbow bolts flying both ways. There's, you can smell the horses sweat as they're kind of getting ready to go for it, and the fear in these guys as well as they're getting ready to stand up for it. So what happens here? Boom, the knights have gone forward. You can see I've pushed up with spearmen as well, but some of them are into my crossbows and my spears at the other end. There's some knight on knight combat. I think, yeah, that was a transfer. I didn't paint that one, but the Morning Star's kind of going into action as the two deadly sets of knights. My general's this one in the orange, with these guys in the orange against this this checkerboard guy over here. That's a big proper knightly fight in the middle. Over on the other side, yes, I have managed to tempt some of the knights to have a go at my spearmen. Their spearmen have moved up in support as well. My knights are not quite engaged, but luckily now this guy can't shoot. He's an overlap. Means we've got a good chance of going in against some of the weaker troops, and that reserve is presumably still holding off my my Almogavars there. So the knights are in. There looks like there's some hits coming in here onto my spearmen. There's one there. Obviously we block furious charge, but they're still going on. These guys are fighting furiously as well as the combat continues. And again, it's proper kind of close quarters action. These guys fighting in, fighting out, the swords going in, spears, lances, all of it. It's all pretty brutal there. And Bosh, what's happened here? Well, somebody's gone straight through, and that's inevitably the crossbow. He just got too close. I left him in the line too much. I just didn't really have enough coverage over here. The knights didn't get across far enough, and some of their impetuous knights have now burst through. That looks like an injury to my knights as well, but these guys are still fighting, but this is a big problem because I don't appear to have a great deal of reserves. My army's been quite stretched here, and here also the knights are doing pretty well. Looks like, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, there's still 4 there, so that gap may well have been left to allow the knight to go into the bowman who've taken 2 hits. These really nice spearmen have taken 2 hits. He's taken 1. I'm not seeing any hit markers there apart from perhaps here where the cavalry are struggling against the crossbowmen, but they're doing well here, and I'm going to have to put my knights in here really to reinforce this or hold some back to possibly fill up some gaps. On the end, now these guys have got committed. It has freed up the Almogavars to go chasing the mediocre bowmen and possibly the camp as well. So this is a good opportunity. This is it's not as easy to hit bowmen with cavalry as it looks. Certainly if they do well in that first round, they're fine. The overlap's done well there as well for them. So here, yeah, my knights are now starting to go in. The ones that I'd held back, this block here, are having a go against these spearmen. I've got an overlap here, but still this is the breakthrough. These knights are starting to take hits, and it's difficult to force because everything's so congested. It's just difficult to force stuff in the middle. It is a bit of a straight fight, and I think a lot of the time the other knights are somewhat better than mine. So here, just looking at it, these chaps were not going to stand, and it did look like things were kind of going quite badly for me on average. In the other one, everything's committed to combat. So I pushed the spearmen forward and the javelinmen to try and have a go at these mediocre guys over here. I've got some kind of reserves as well, and if they can knock a hole in them, that does help really support these guys and come through into the flank. So what happens here? Yeah, looks like the javelinmen have won, but the enemy spearmen have won here, and we're starting to rack up quite a lot of hits. There's a hit on the spearman, hit on the knight, 2 hits on that knight, even though he's losing. I can only see one over there, These must have taken a shooting hit or something earlier in the game and are trying just to take this guy's attention and stop him turning into the flank of my knights and making that into a disaster. Here's another view. I've still got a reserve knight, which is probably in some ways not, well, a good thing if he's needed, but not a good thing because he's not committed. And again, hits are starting to ratchet up here as the quality of these guys in this protracted struggle. In some ways, the best opportunity from my guys was that the spearman was in the first round to do damage to the knights. Then it's very hard for the knights to recover. But if they survive the first round, still ongoing. And again, look at our general. That's lovely stuff in there, isn't it? And finally, the Almogavars get in and appear to get a kicking from the bowmen. One of them's gone. That's a long, long way to walk to be deeply, deeply disappointed, really, as an Almogavar. He's his friend must be, that guy's obviously got more of a sword. I'm not entirely sure he's mediocre, but he did very well. Whoosh, stuff all happening there. But here we go. You've got the Reconquer guys all holding fast against these knights, pushing them, but the markers are starting to crop up everywhere. There's obviously a gap open. That must have been a spearman, so one of my knights has already had to, the reserve knight has found a place to get plugged in, but still too much to do to get round and overlap them. And here, this battle is obviously going very badly for me. 2 more knights have gone here. These have both stepped forward. If you remember, he was blocking this guy who'd broken through the line, but both of these have now big holes in the line as well, and that's starting to look rather indefensible, to be honest. I've done some damage back on the crossbows here, but difficult for me to bring out the bowmen now. There's cavalry there, and this guy's doing well, but this is just huge problem city, really. And yeah, that's one happy general there, isn't it, really? One particularly chuffed guy, looking very, very good. And yeah, here we can see it from a different angle. The Germanic head of the leader of these Sicilians is just pushing his guys forward into vast acres of open space right in the middle of my army that's just ripped a massive, massive hole through it. Yeah, of course, as soon as you get holes, you get problems like this. The enemy beat up another set of knights. They can turn into the flank of my general. Looks like the spearmen, everybody's bounced off of them as well. So this is now, well, knights are turned to start charging and rolling up my line. That's exactly the worst thing, and my absolute lack of reserves here in being sort of stretched to commit to take on 8 knights and 4 spearmen, take on a width of 12 with an army that struggles to make a width of 12 itself. I've just been outstretched, really. And yeah, the javelinmen look like they've gone. That's done some hits on my bowmen. My spearmen are starting to take hits. He's driven off the light horse, so this is really only a matter of time as well before this one kind of folds. And that was it. That was game over. This is my dreadfully poorly painted checkerboard, nowhere near as good as the other lovely ones we've seen, but that was a pretty crushing front up, straight in, one-on-one, brutal head-to-head fight.